Hello sewists, I'm going to show you how to sew this pencil wrap case. Once you get the basics down, it's easy to customize for pens, markers, other tools. I'm glad you're here. Let's get sewing. The first thing I'm going to do is put the pattern together. Cut the right side off of page 1 and page 2 of the pattern. Line up the circles overlapping the cut line and then tape the pattern pieces together. Now I'm going to cut out the pattern. When you're cutting out patterns, try to keep one part of your scissors down on the mat and take nice long strokes. Now I'll use the pattern to cut the fabric. I need 2 pieces of the main fabric. My fabric is folded over, so I'll cut 2 pieces at once. I'll pin the pattern to the fabric and use my scissors to cut around. I only need 1 pocket piece, so I've opened up my fabric to 1 layer. And in order to cut the pocket, I'll fold the pattern on the line. All right, this is the perfect size for the pocket, and I'll show you now my preferred method of cutting, which is to use pattern weights and a rotary cutter. Now my fabric is cut and it's on to sewing. Okay, I'm working on the pocket now, and I'm going to fold over the top edge 1/4 inch. You can use a ruler to measure it, or you can just eyeball it. And then I'm going to press as I fold. Then I'm going to fold the fabric over again and press. This will enclose the raw edge of the fabric. Now I'm going to sew along the top edge to finish it. I'll take it over to the machine. I slow down when I reach the end, and I remember to backstitch at the beginning and the end of my stitch. Okay, I take 1 piece of my main fabric and I lay the pocket piece down on top of the main fabric, lining up the bottom raw edges. The fabrics are right sides together. And then I take my other main fabric piece and I lay it down on top, right sides together with the other main fabric piece. And I put it on top. And now the pocket is sandwiched between the 2 main fabrics. Okay, I'm going to put 2 pins in at the side here to hold these 3 pieces together, and also to mark an opening about 3 to 3.5 inches. And this opening, I'm going to sew around, but what I'm going to do is leave this piece open here, this section open. I might move this down a little bit so that I'll be able to turn it right side out. I'm going to go back to the machine and I'm going to sew from one pin, remembering to backstitch, all the way around all sides to the other pin, backstitch, leaving this opening. I slow down when I get to the edge, and then I lift my presser foot, I turn the fabric, the needle is down so it holds the fabric in place. I put my presser foot back down and I continue sewing. Slowing down near the corner, a couple stitches, lift the presser foot, turn the fabric, lower the presser foot. And that's how I easily get around the corners. And then stopping at this pin, removing the pin, a couple back stitches, oops. And I still have my opening here so that I'll be able to turn it right side out. Okay, so now that I've sewn all around the perimeter of my pencil wrap, I've gone ahead and I've clipped this corner. I'm going to do this to each of the 4 corners, and I just use my scissors and I cut on a diagonal just right up next to the seam line. Don't cut through the seam line or you'll end up with a hole, but just right up next to it. Then when I turn my pencil wrap right side out, my corners will be nice and sharp. I'm also going to trim my seam allowance down. So my seam allowance now is about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to trim it down even further so that when I press it flat, there will be less bulk in the seam area. So I'm going to go around on 3 sides to trim my seam allowance. Don't trim the side that you left the opening on. We need that opening for closing it up later. So only trim your seam allowance on 3 sides. And again, we're getting close to the stitching line, but not through it. Okay, now that my seam allowances are trimmed down and my corners are cut on the diagonal, I will go ahead and start turning this right side out. I'm going to push out the corners with my corner presser tool. This is a corner presser tool, but a ballpoint pen that is not open or a chopstick works just as well to push out your corners. I put it inside and then I get over here into these corners. And because I had trimmed down on the diagonal, you can see my corner is nice and sharp. And I'll do that for all the corners. Be careful when you're poking out your corners that you don't poke too hard and go through the corner. You want your corner to stay a corner. Okay, so on this side that has the opening, I just fold in the seam allowance. So about 1/4 inch. I hold it closed, and then I'm going to use my iron to press, and I'm going to press all around my pencil wrap in order to flatten it out and get the seams nice and straight. In these seams here, just use your fingers to roll the seam to the edge so that you don't have it folded in. And press the whole thing flat. The pencil wrap is pressed nice and flat, and my seams are all straight and my corners are pushed out. It looks nice. I'll take my ribbon and fold it in half. It can be even. And then I'll take the folded edge and I'll just tuck it in about 3/4 inch into the opening, and I'll use a pin to hold it there. Now I'm going to go to my machine and I'm going to sew an edge stitch around all 4 corners. The edge stitch is about 1/8 inch from the edge of the fabric, and once I sew the edge stitch, it will close up this opening here and secure the ribbon. It's all sewn up and the ribbon is secure and it's nice and flat. I gave it one more press, and as I put my ruler in between the 2 seam lines, I can see that I have just about 18 inches exactly. So now I'm going to make a chalk line at every 1 inch mark. I'm going to start on this side to make my lines, and I'm going to place my 1 inch line of my ruler over the seam line, and that gives me my guide, and then use my chalk to make a line. Then I move my 1 inch line to my chalk line and make another line, and I'll move it again. And I'll continue this way until I have all my, I may switch colors because I think the white is not showing up the way I want it to. So I have a different chalk marker and I'll use that. Oh, that does show up a little bit better. So I can see this one, but I think I might redraw this line just so that I can see it. If you don't have a chalk marker, you can use a Crayola. You can use any washable marker. You can use a light pencil mark, because you're going to be sewing right over the line. And go ahead and fill up your pencil wrap with these lines at every 1 inch mark. Now I will go to my machine and I will actually start sewing from the bottom to the top on each line. And the reason I sew from the bottom to the top is because I have this pocket piece. The fabric may push a little bit, and so I don't want it bunching down here at the bottom. So I'll start at the bottom and I'll sew to the top of each line past the pocket piece just to continue the line. I've sewn all of the lines and I'm just finishing up trimming my little threads off. And there you have it.